IMA SCPP in the last class, and I've told you that IMA is so committed to it that in the beginning, when IMA started itself, they had an ethics committee and they had several revisions of the IMA CPP. From 2005 onwards, it's called IMA CPP. So please do not refer to as code of conduct only. There's nothing wrong in it, but it's better you refer to this as IMA Statement of Ethical Professional Practice. And we are learning the newest edition, which is effective from 1st July 2017. And this is the IMA Statement of Ethical Professional Practice, hardly 2 pages when you print it, including the hotline numbers, all that. But still, I want to drag this for minimum 1 class because it's that much important. These 2 lines, if you 2 pages, if you master, at a minimum you will have some 7 questions on this. So that much is the importance. Sometimes even an essay question from that. So let's read word by word and understand it. Okay, the right from the wrong. A commitment to ethical professional practice includes overarching principles that express our values and standards that guide member conduct. So, in the introduction itself, they are saying that a commitment to ethical professional practice includes one, overarching principles that express our values. So, principles express our values. They are just aspirational, right? You need to really try to achieve those values, right? And then standards that guide member conduct. I would say like honesty is the best policy. That is something like expressing our value. But then you cannot put somebody in jail saying that he was not honest. You have to prove that he has violated some provisions of the Indian Penal Code if you have to put him in jail in India, right? So simply that he is not honest is not good enough to put him in jail. That's the same difference here. A commitment to ethical professional practice include overarching principles that express our values. We also, like in the Indian Constitution, we have some values like liberty, fraternity. So many. I mean, I'm not too sure about it, but you have something. All the students by heart it. So that's the overarching principles that express our values and standards that guide member conduct. So here, if you violate any of these standards, then a disciplinary action can be taken. That you have violated the code of conduct. That's the difference between these two. Now, this has got 2 sections definitely, principles and standards. And then you have a conclusion paragraph which says that resolving ethical issues. What are the procedure, steps involved in resolving ethical issues? That's the discussion. And then you have an ethics helpline. It's not a hotline, it is a helpline. IMA ethics helpline number for callers in the US and Canada. Others, you have to give the country code. In other countries, dial the AT&T USA direct access number from whatever, like from wherever you are calling. And then it's not a hotline. Your call will be reaching there. They will come back to you. So that is a service. Ethics helpline is there for IMA. Okay, that you should know that. They have an ethics committee and they have an ethics helpline, right? So this is the way it looks. I think you have some idea about it. Okay. So what are the overarching principles that express our values? It's a small paragraph. IMA's overarching ethical principles include, so they didn't want to really limit the overarching principles to this. It is only like IMA's overarching ethical principles include honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. You have to remember in that order because there's only one paragraph, right? And members shall act in accordance with these principles and shall encourage others within their organizations to adhere to them. So it is not just limited to IMA members. Members of IMA shall behave ethically. A commitment to ethical professional practice include overarching principles that express our values and standards that guide member conduct. And these are the overarching principles. Four are named here: honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. And as members, you are all members. Like to write the CMA examination, also you have to be a member. It's not that after getting CMA you become a member. You are already a member, and only members can write the examination also. So it is all binding on you. You have to act in accordance with these principles, and you should also encourage others within their organization, notwithstanding they are IMA members or not. You should encourage everybody in your organization to adhere to these principles. They are overarching ethical principles. You have to remember it as H for honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. And when it comes to this is only two sentences about the principles. They are not giving any explanation about what is honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. So if you don't know those words, you have to really refer to them in a dictionary and understand it, because they are words which are commonly used. Honesty means what? Whenever you say a person is honest, he's a very truthful person. He is governed by his conscience, right? That's the meaning you get, right? He's a very honest person. This is my interpretation. That's not there in this. You just need to remember honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. Let me write it very clearly for you. H for honesty. Whenever you hear about honesty, what should come to your mind? He's a very an honest person, is a truthful person, he's governed by conscience, right? And whenever you say that somebody is fair, he's a very reasonable person, we can say. Like, he is fair means actually whenever he discusses something, he will give you a full detail, full disclosure of what he says. That's a fair disclosure, right? So you can say he's a very reasonable person. He will disclose. He will go for full disclosure whenever somebody is giving me a private message. H for shall we say? No. Why do you say that? You can say it actually, but I want you to really remember in that order because there is only one sentence. I don't want you to really go for H4, HO4, nothing of that sort. HOFR, nothing of that sort. I want you to really remember honesty, fairness, objectivity, and is that not in the order? Honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility.
Shall we say, sir, offer something like that for?
You can always say. In fact, in the claim, what claim video lecture, actually, they have the premium version. No? They have something like some other HR FM, something like that, some other thing. But why do you want to go for that actually? I want you to have it in the same order of description. If you say
Offer to remember it actually.
yeah, you can remember it, but there are only four words. why do you want to sacrifice the order also?
Okay.
You understand? It is
Okay.
first honesty, fairness. Actually speaking,
Integrity.
there is no honesty. You are right. There is no, I mean, sorry, there is no order. You can remember it in any way. But still, I want you to really memorize it as it comes in the IMA CPP. I want you to read probably every day till your examination and be thorough with every sentence there in it. So these are just two, four words. You don't have to sacrifice anything for remembering it actually, because it's too important actually. This is like HOFR, when you say it, Hofer, that may be there in your mind, you can have it, but then problem is actually you're having it in a different order. There is nothing in having it in different order also. Then you can include so many things in this, because it only say that okay, overarching principles include. That really doesn't limit. And then CMA examination is not something really testing whether you remember the order or not. So you can have your acronym. There is absolutely no issue. But I want you to really familiarize maximum with this uh, these 2 pages, so that you remember in the same order, you memorize in the same order. So honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. These are the four overarching principles named in the IMA CPP, and they don't give any definition. So we are just discussing what it could mean, right? So I have gone through one article there in Strategic Finance magazine, and I have just copy pasted uh, some description that author was giving. Probably this, I mean, among what I have seen, this is the best one I could really see. But again, these are not needed for your examination. What you understand from the words, you already have something like an objective, a person of responsibility, how he will behave. That's good enough. There is no definition. These definitions I have just, I mean, I was really fascinated by, because I have gone through many articles where they are really giving only what is honesty for the IMA management accountants only, like that. What is so relevant for the examination? I couldn't see much actually. This is what I could see, but even this is not really needed. So let's discuss the four overarching principles. One, honesty. Honesty requires conscientious application to the task at hand and truthfulness in all analysis and communication outcomes. That means an honest person, as you say, is governed by the conscience, and like whenever there is an issue, the first thing which guide him is his own conscience, and he's a very truthful person, right? That's the honesty. And we also already have heard honesty is the best policy, like that. Then the fairness. Fairness requires, you don't have to really write down any of these blue letters which I have given. You have to really remember this for. But then, if you really want to appreciate and discuss this, then I would encourage you to. Fairness requires just and empathetic consideration of the needs of others when making decisions in particular situation, as well as full disclosure of all necessary contextual information. Like, already you know a fair person will consider the needs of others, right? And a fair person is very reasonable in that. And then this full disclosure, I liked it, because whenever you go for any reporting, all that, you normally use the word the report is fair, means it is talking about good and bad, everything without manipulating, right? That's a fair so you say the auditor is giving an opinion that this financial statement show a true and fair opinion of the, I mean, true and fair view of the financial position of the entity. So from there, what accountants mean by fairness is more like a full disclosure. So that's very important. That is the reason I really like it. Otherwise, when you say a fair person is a reasonable person, that is what you would see. Fair person, consider the needs for others. That's it. But full disclosure is very much important, very much relevant in the context we are talking about, right? That's a fair person. So because we normally use this report is fairly presenting all material facts. That means it is giving a full disclosure without any bias. That, okay, so that's fairness. Objectivity, like, is a personal character. A person is objective means he's impartial, right? He is having a dispassionate consideration and evaluation of conflicting points of view before arriving at uh, I mean, objectivity requires impartial, dispassionate consideration and evaluation of conflicting points of view before arriving at an optimal solution. This I have just copied pasted from that article. So when you hear about objectivity, you will think about impartiality, right? He is a very impartial person, right? And that means like an objective person is free from bias, right? An objective person is free from bias. He is very impartial. He may be having some opinion, but when he takes a decision, he is very objective. He will not go by what he believes, but rather like what should be ideal for everybody. Like that. So to that extent, uh, this fairness and objectivity has got some overlap also there. So these are not watertight compartments. These are some good principles which should value your, which should, which should express your values. That is it. Then responsibility requires actions to be performed with faithfulness and loyalty. So responsibility means faithfulness and loyalty, you could say. Um, when you say a person is responsible, he is very much accountable. Like if he is given a task, you can depend on him. A responsible person holds himself accountable for the duties delegated to him. So that way he is loyal to that organization. That way he is faithful to what he undertakes, and to that extent he is very dependable on that. He is accountable, he is dependable, right? So I would say, uh, like when you say you take responsibility means you take ownership of what you do. So these are the general understanding you should get. I know that all of you already know all these terminology, but these are the overarching principles that express our values. Actually, they include the overarching principles that express our values. You may have some other values also, and this can be interpreted in any way you want it. When I was just reading it, also like objectivity is also some dispassionate consideration, impartial consideration of all relevant facts. Such a person would disclose all relevant facts, so there is an overlap. So that is fine. So you will not remember, you will not forget these four words: honesty, fairness, objectivity, responsibility. Like John said, you can remember it as Hofer, or you can remember it as HRFO. I think it's HRFO coming in that. I don't remember that. Whatever way you can remember it, you can have some way to have it. But it's not really important to have those in any order. But I would like you to really remember it in the order: honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility. So these principles express our values. When I say that they are they express our values, means these are our value system. They are very aspirational and they are general in nature. Adherence to these principles is voluntary, and non-compliance doesn't subject members to potential disciplinary action. So you, as I told you, like any values, they are too general. You cannot put anybody in jail, or you cannot make any disciplinary action. You cannot take any disciplinary action saying that he's not fair. So you have to pinpoint why, where he is not fair. So you have to have some uh, specific specific standards that guide member conduct. So that is what we are going to get into now. So principles are clear. there is like I have discussed too much there. You don't need to really worry about it. You just need to remember that they are very general and aspirational. IMM member is supposed to be honest. He should be like honest means truthful and whatever you can think about honesty, you can think of it. Fair means full disclosure, and then he will consider the needs of everybody. Objectivity means he is impartial. Responsibility means he takes ownership and you can depend on him. He is holding himself accountable for what he is doing. So all those things are general in nature. But then standards are not like that. The IMM members have a responsibility to comply with and uphold the standards of competence, confidentiality, integrity, and credibility. Here also, here not also, here you need to remember 100% in that order. CEIT, competence, confidentiality, integrity, and credibility. CEIT, competence. First C is for competence. Second C is for confidentiality. Fourth C is for credibility, and in between an I, that is integrity, right? Competence, confidentiality, integrity, and credibility. Under that, there are some points you need to really remember how many points under that, and point by point you need to remember. And failure to comply may result in disciplinary action. Right? So you need to really see that which point you are violating. In a particular situation itself, you can violate more than one point. They are also watertight compartments. So you in a particular situation also, but you have to say that we are like you are violating. This person has violated, this IMA member has violated these conduct, this code of conduct provisions, and he is guilty of that. A disciplinary action can be taken against him. So failure to comply may result in disciplinary action. IMM members have a responsibility to comply with these standards. Actually, in the earlier one, the old one, if you really see, up till what I have read this thing, but the member's failure to comply with the following standards may result in disciplinary action. That was the introduction to standards. And then under every standard, under each of these forums, they were writing every member has a responsibility too. So it was too vocal there, but that's not the way, no? Like when you have something in general for every paragraph, instead of writing before every paragraph, if you write at the beginning, each member has a responsibility to adhere to the standards, then the text look neat. So that's what it is. But this is the way it is. For each of these provisions, you have to read that every member, each member has a responsibility to maintain, do this, like that. You have to really do that. So every member, IMM members have a responsibility to comply with and uphold the standards of competence, confidentiality, integrity, and credibility. And if you don't comply with this, you will have to face disciplinary action. Okay. So competence. There are some 3 points in there, right? And in the earlier one, there were 4 points. One is removed. One is not removed, move to another. So I'll tell you the background for that. So you should appreciate that point. We'll just go through that. One, maintain an appropriate level of professional leadership and expertise by enhancing knowledge and skills. So you have to maintain your leadership and expertise. So how do you maintain? Like when you study CMA examination, you are learning so many things. But then that's not the end of it. You have to have continuing professional education. You need to keep enhancing your knowledge and skills. You need to sharpen your sword. That is really important. Continuous learning, continuous professional education is really important. So you need to maintain maintain an appropriate level of expertise. That is one. And of course, IMM members have to take up a leadership role. So, maintain an appropriate level of professional leadership and expertise by enhancing knowledge. So you need to keep yourself updated. That's okay. It's not enough if you are learning everything. You have to perform your professional duties in accordance with what you have learned. The technical standards, relevance, laws, regulations, everything. You should put it in practice. Like, in sense, like, if that is relevant for your job, you should really perform your professional duties in accordance with the relevant laws, regulations, and everything. So you are not expected to have knowledge in all fields. Like, say, for example, you are not expected to have complete knowledge. That is not possible also for everybody. If anybody thinks that, then of course he really doesn't understand what he knows. So you cannot really have expertise in all aspects. So what is relevant for your job, you have to specialize, and then you need to see that you are making a reasonable effort to learn and understand it. You should perform your professional duties in accordance with the relevant laws, regulations, and technical standards. That's about the discharge of your duties. So you need to be updated with all the information. You need to perform your duties in accordance with the standards, like whatever knowledge you are supposed to have, you should have it. You should perform your duties in accordance with you should comply with the laws, regulations, and technical standards applicable to that aspect of the job. It's all about competence, right? Then IMM members are supposed to be in the senior roles where they provide decision support information and recommendations that are accurate, clear, concise, and timely. Right? So you, like as an IMM member, your competence should help you to provide decision support information. So you should be like giving the management not only the information, they should help them with the recommendations and decision support. So that kind of role, you have to elevate yourself to that kind of a role, right? So you should try from the beginning of your career itself to provide value addition to the management, to the organization you are working for. So you should provide them with decision support information and recommendations. And you need to ensure that that kind of decision support information and recommendation are accurate, clear. They should be accurate, clear, and concise, very like brief, and timely. You should not delay them. You should give it at the earliest opportunity possible. So then only it is really useful for your employees. First of all, you need to update yourself. You need to keep yourself updated. You need to perform your duties in accordance with what you've learned. And then you need to really give proactive advice and recommendation to your employees or to the organization you're working. So these are the three things which were there in the earlier one. But then the new one, they added one more sentence to the third point. Recognize and help manage risk. Those who have attended the last section on the risk management, I have told you that risk management is really getting so much importance in today's organizations. In 1987, Merrill Lynch was the first bank to have a risk management department in the world. But now, there is not even a single bank doesn't have a risk management department. So that much is the importance of risk management. And not only in the bank, in every company, risk management is really important. It was like earlier view was to reduce the risk, but now it's not like that. Business is all about risk. You should take up risk and then you should manage that. That's the way to do it. But you should not exceed your risk appetite. So all that we have had a good discussion in the risk management. So you should recognize and help the organization. You should recognize risk and you should help the organization to manage that risk. So you should have, you should take up, you should have the competence to recognize or to identify the risk and to help the management in to help in risk management also, to identify and manage risk. You need to have sufficient competency to identify and manage risk. So that is a competence which is very much needed for a management accountant in today's world, because risk management is really important. You need to optimize risk, so you need to recognize risk and you need to manage that risk within the risk appetite. So that's what is called business managing risk. So if you need to really have a code of conduct for the accountants in business, this is the most important thing in developing competence. So that is added. This with so much deliberation, they have added a small sentence. So you should understand the importance of it, that one sentence. Recognize and self-manage risk. And risk management has really become important in these last 4 decades. So that is really recognized, and IMM members are supposed to develop a competence in risk management. Not that they have to really take up a job in risk management. Every job, every activity has got risk. So you should have the competence to recognize and manage risk, and you should help the organization manage the risk facing them. So these are the competence chapter. Now if you see the last one, they had a fourth one. Recognize and communicate professional limitations and other constraints that will preclude responsible judgment or successful performance of an activity. Recognize and communicate professional limitations and other constraints that would preclude responsible judgment or successful performance of an activity. This is moved now from competence to credibility. If you really see our new one, that is there in the credibility. Communicate professional limitations or other constraints that would preclude responsible judgment or successful performance of an activity. So that means actually the people who have done it with so much deliberation earlier did not know that it is something to be added to the credibility, not to the competence. Did you notice the big change in that sentence? In the earlier one, it was recognize and communicate. But now they have taken out the word recognize. It's only communicate. But when you include recognize, to recognize your professional limitations, you need to be competent. This is like people were not really appreciating that recognize portion. That is why they had the confusion. And of course, when you communicate your professional limitations, that adds to the credibility. But when you to recognize your professional limitations, you need to have competence, certain level of competence. At least a certain level of competence is needed. It is actually taking from that discussion, is taking from some psychological concepts actually. You know, in psychology, when you really learn that behavioral science, all that, competence is like this. The behavioral psychology and all, you will learn this actually when you talk about competence. Say driving is a competence, right? Public speaking is a competence. You need to be competent in that. They are really dividing that actually. Competent, incompetent. So an incompetent person is becoming competent in this dimension, right? In this axis. And here it is unconscious, like you're conscious about this thing, and not conscious about it, unconscious about it. You are aware of it. Here, like, it's not relevant for your examination, but I just wanted to really get your understanding that it is not just removing from competency to credibility, and they have consciously, like, there is a change in the wording. That is the whole thing actually. It was earlier recognize and communicate, now it's communicate, right? So here I'll tell you, driving is a competence. A boy uh, who is 10 years old, he thinks he knows driving because he is all the time with his father in the car, sitting in the front. He knows how father drives, so he thinks he knows driving. It's only a matter that he doesn't have license, so he is not allowed to sit there. He's got adequate height, he can manage the car, right? But just that others are not confident actually. He's confident, right? He thinks he knows driving, but actually speaking, does he know? Like, see, my son at that age had the feeling that he knows driving, and I asked him actually whether you. Yes, I know. Then he explained to me. He said actually you have to take the key, and then you have to put the key in that hole actually, and then while doing that you should press the clutch, and then you should have, like, don't forget to press that brake also, otherwise the car will move. So he is explaining everything very clearly, and then he stays saying that if you see a bump you have to really change the gear, and then you have to press the clutch again. So he is explaining that very well. So he thinks he knows driving, but he has never driven, right? So this is the most dangerous part of competence. All of us are in some work or other in that way. Like, say for example, if you have a stepney there in the car and the jockey there, you think that you can. But believe me, for the first time, if you haven't done it in the past, you will not be able to change the time. Because the jockey and all, like, when others do it, it is so simple. Why jockey and then car actually? Like, if I give you one nail and a hammer to put that nail on the wall, it is so difficult, right? First time, I mean, after few times, yes, then you are competent on that. But then you all think, none of you honestly think that you are not competent to put a nail on the wall. Everybody thinks that having a jockey and then a stepney there in the car really good enough in case. But you need to practice. You need to develop that. Otherwise, you will not be able to do that. But it is good to have the stepney and jockey there. Yeah, Rahina having a problem, John Bosco will be there side by side. He will help you. That is it. If there is no jockey and stepney, he will also be not be. That is equipped. You are equipped, but not competent. So my son, who is 10 years old, he is not aware that he is not competent. Some of the bosses are like that. They don't know what is Excel, that is, they don't know what is PowerPoint, but they know that this work is a donkey work. You take this database, hit it with this, it will work. Right? They don't know that they don't know. That is what is called unconscious incompetence. They are incompetent, but they are not aware that they are incompetent. Car, like, you have the like steering balance, everything matters when it comes to driving. Not just that clutch is like this, all that. So you need to practice and you need to become competent. So my son at 10 years, he thinks and he's convincing everybody that he knows, like the boss who thinks that take two database, hit it, and then you will see the matching one reconcile in 1 minute. Like, so he thinks that way, but it's not so simple, right? So that is the level of unconscious incompetency. Then my son, like 13, 14 years, when I am not there, he will take the car. Then the car will move. That day, if I am lucky, I would have faced the car to the compound wall. If I am unlucky, I would be facing the car to the house. Right? But then he knows that he doesn't know, right? But it's at that cost. So that he is elevating himself to he is conscious that he is incompetent. So this is the lowest level. You need to have some kind of competency to recognize that you don't know these things, right? So a competent person, incompetent person, unconscious incompetence, he doesn't even know he doesn't know. So to recognize your professional limitations, you need to have certain level of competence. So if I am a chartered accountant, so like I in fact have done a course in GST. Like when the GST was introduced in India, I have taken a full-fledged course for chartered accountants to learn GST. I have done that. I have a certificate saying that I have attended successfully and passed the examination. But then GST after that actually keep evolving. Even now there are changes. So if you come and ask me some advices, then I would say that I am not practicing this. You have to ask somebody who is doing it. But then GST is a value-added tax. I can tell you some general principles regarding that. But if you need practical advice on how to do GST work, what are the forms involved in that, you have to refer to somebody who is practicing in that. So that recognizing my professional limitations and then advising you saying that I don't have it and this is something which I've got the opinion from these people, like that, recognizing and communicating my professional limitations. To recognize my professional limitations, I need to have certain level of competence, but communicating it adds to my credibility. So that is the reason, by removing the word recognizing, they have added that. So just don't say that others did not know. The people who had done the drafting earlier were unaware of it. They were aware. When they changed also, the new committee are also aware, but they have taken out the word recognize. Right? But anyway, as I have started with this nonsense, let me complete this. So now, my son, what will he do? He will go learn driving. So then he is competent to do the driving. Once he learns driving, he is aware that he knows driving and he is competent also. He is aware, just mark my word, he is very conscious that he knows driving. It is like me, he is very conscious and he is a competent driver. Right? I am very, see, mark my word, conscious. Conscious, so not conscious, conscious. I am conscious about driving and I am competent, I know driving. So I get into the car, like I see all the four wheels are there. I get into the car, start the car, look at the dashboard, everything is clear, and then see which gear it is. Right? It is neutral means I will put it in the first gear, whatever. Then I will drive. Then when I see a bump, I'll see in which gear, right? I am driving, and I will change the gear. And like when I feel that I'm not getting adequate control, I'll see which gear I am driving and I will manage the gear accordingly. So I am a conscious, competent driver. I am at that stage. So my son, when he learns driving, he will become a conscious, competent driver. You understand? But then, if I know driving really well, will I look at the gear? No, I will not even really pay any attention to the dashboard. But once there is something there in the dashboard, like some red thing, that time automatically it will come to me. Otherwise, I will not, like, it's not like me seeing looking at the gear, a competent driver, a really expert in the driving. He will not even uh, pay any attention to the gear. He knows in which gear he is driving from the sound or whatever. Like that kind of tacit knowledge he's got. He cannot explain it, but he knows it. He knows. But then this is unconscious competence. That's the height of competence. I will take at least 10 years to reach that level. But by that time I may even die. But then that is the height of competence. unconscious competency. So anyway, this is some discussion I had in organizational behavioral class. So I just wanted to say it. Nothing to do with CMA examination. Only thing you should remember that others who had, like the earlier people who had put this in the code of conduct under competency were not fools. They had the word recognize. To recognize professional limitations, you need to be competent. But anyway, that is moved out. It is not moving out. They have changed it. They have removed the word recognize. Then it is apt. It is adding to the credibility of that person. Okay. So what are the 3 points under? You have to remember it by points. What are the 3 points? Maintain appropriate level of competence and keep updating yourself. You should perform all your duties in accordance with that knowledge. Third, you should provide, it's not that just doing your work, you need to give proactive recommendations and leadership, and decisions. One thing, something really injected as you recognize and self management. So that is the competence standard. 3 points you should really see. If somebody say that okay, is he expected to have full knowledge of anything, that is neither possible not really required. But then he should really make an effort to keep himself updated. That is point number 1. He should do that work in accordance with those standards. Second standard, he should try to give timely, concise, accurate, clear recommendations to the management, and then he should be an integral part of the risk management process of that company. Then the competence standard is over. Right? Then the confidentiality. When it comes to confidentiality, you should always remember that everything has to be confidential except when disclosure is authorized or legal. See, all of us, like, many of us, not all of us, many of us have got a feeling that you can give information to anybody unless it is prohibited. It's not like that. It is not like that means it's not what I preach, it is there in the code of conduct. It is the opposite. You have to keep everything confidential and you should disclose it only when it is authorized and legally. You understand? So you have to keep information confidential except when disclosure is authorized or legally required. It is not the other way around. You can give information as long as it is not confidential. That's not the thing. You have to keep everything confidential unless it is authorized and legally required for the disclosure. So that's the opposite. That's the complement of that. So keep information, keep all the business information, keep everything confidential except when disclosure is authorized or legally required. Don't think too much about it, just understand this. You may have a different opinion, but this is what is there in the IMA code of conduct. As a member, when it comes to business information, this is what you should guide you as an IMA member. Right? Keep information confidential except when disclosure is authorized. Authorized means by job duty, you are supposed to give that information to people, then you do. Right? And by when a court of law is subpoenaing you, like subpoenaed by a court, you have to give information. Right? A summons from the court to produce these books of accounts, you have to go because it's a legal record. And your boss is saying that please give this information to the auditors or to the consultants. So then you are authorized to do that. So you have to give it. Other than that, you should keep all the information confidential. So keep information confidential except when disclosure is authorized or legally required. So everything is confidential except when it is authorized, except when the disclosure is authorized or legally required. Clear? This is a very confusing point because many people think that information is to be given to others and you have to stop giving it only when it is prohibited. So it's exactly opposite. Keep information confidential except when disclosure is authorized or legally required. That is the duty of an accountant, management accountant. Sorry, that is the duty of an IMA member. Then, inform all relevant parties regarding appropriate use of confidential information. That is the second thing. Monitor to ensure compliance. It is like when you give this information to like somebody outside your organization or wherever you give the information, outside or internal or external, you have to say that I am giving you this information for this particular purpose as authorized by manager, right? This is for your particular use. Keep this information confidential. You have to advise them. You have to inform all relevant parties regarding appropriate use of confidential information. Like when you say, when you send an email also with an attachment, you have seen this confidentiality clause there. No, if this message is intended for that recipient. If you are not the recipient, please delete it and inform us. All that kind of confidentiality clause will be there in that. It's all coming from here. Inform all relevant parties regarding appropriate use of confidential information. When it comes to auditors, consultants, and all, you may have a confidentiality agreement with them as such, or otherwise also it is understood actually when an auditor is engaged. Normally you have a confidentiality agreement signed for any consultants, but auditor also you're supposed to sign, but then it is implied that the auditor confident should handle that information confidentially. But whenever you need to really inform anybody regarding the appropriate use of confidential information, please do that. You are supposed to inform the party. The party should not really have a confusion whether it is confidential or not. So you should inform all relevant parties, whoever you are giving information. You need to ensure that they also would keep the confidentiality of that information and they would not misuse or abuse that information. And as long as you give that advice to them, you are safe. Don't think that you are not safe. You need to monitor to ensure their compliance. Most of the in an organizational setup, mostly it comes actually you give your monitor, you give your information to your subordinates, and they may divulge that information, and you will be held responsible. That's the common violation. That's a common violation. But somehow or other, in the old standard, to really address that common violation, they had a sentence like this: monitor subordinates' activities to ensure compliance. This is actually to address the common. This is the standard. Inform all relevant parties regarding the appropriate use of confidential information, and you need to monitor uh, their compliance with that. Right? They are not abusing or misusing that. Actually, like first of all, you should give only to trustworthy people who have either entered into a confidentiality agreement or whom you can think. You have to use your discretion whether this information can be given to this person or not. And you need to like if you have a doubt, you need to really monitor their activities to ensure compliance